Goldman Sachs says my plan would grow our economy and his plan would shrink it.
A few moments later.
Let's talk some politics. Debate was last night. Not sure if you had a chance to see it or not. Your own economic team, of course, has made news of late, suggesting that the bigger boost to growth would come from the Harris economic plan, at least over the first couple of years. She mentioned it last night. You feel the same?
So that report, which was mentioned last night in the debate, came from an independent analyst. And it's interesting, Scott. I think a lot more has been made of this than should be. What the report did is it looked at a handful of policy issues that have been put out by both sides, and it tried to model their impact on GDP growth. And the reason I say a bigger deal has been made of it is what it showed is the difference between the sets of policies that they put forward was about 0.2%. Okay, so economy grows. Okay, if you took these particular sets of policies they looked at, and by the way, we have no idea whether these policies, these things that are talked about will ultimately be implemented, what was the growth impact? And the differential was 0.2%. So, I think our clients are trying to look at what's going on from a policy perspective and make judgments. I think this blew up into something that's bigger than what it was intended to be.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about the economy, okay? Because Kamala Harris has been caught lying about her economic plan, claiming that the big banks, like, for example, Goldman Sachs, were saying that her plan was so much better than Trump's, okay? Trump has a terrible plan. She has a great plan, even though she and Joe Biden have been in office, and in the 3.5 years that they've been in office, they have destroyed the economy that Trump built. And what Democrats refuse to admit, but everybody knows, is that Trump's economy was on track to come roaring back despite the setback from COVID. However, when Democrats got into office, okay, they decided to ruin the recovery, okay? Everybody can see that the jobs that Biden brags about, most of them government created, a lot of those jobs were already coming back under Trump, right? They were roaring back, okay? We were set to have a great year in 2021, good GDP growth, until, again, Democrats got in office and they ruined everything. So this is a story that Democrats lie about quite a bit when talking about the economy. They pretend as if the economy was terrible and they inherited some terrible situation, and they've essentially made a shit sandwich out of a bad situation, right? This is how they frame their story, right? Their propaganda. However, that's just simply not the case, okay? So it's no surprise that Kamala Harris was lying about Goldman's report that she overly hyped, okay, because it was just a report from one analyst, okay? It was just one person's opinion that, yeah, her economy is going to grow and Trump's is going to shrink, okay? And turns out when you actually listen to the CEO talk about the report, he says, that's not what the report said, okay? The report basically said that both plans would result in similar GDP growth. Now, I don't necessarily buy that because I find it hard to imagine a prosperous economy under the tax and spend policies of the Kamala Harris administration. We know that it's not working now. This is what they're doing now, and Kamala Harris is going to continue that or make it worse, right? We know she wants to raise taxes and she wants to spend more, right? That's what she wants to do. And we've seen that so far that's been a disaster. So that brings me to this video featuring Trump's transition team co-chair, Mr. Howard Lutnick, who is a billionaire businessman, and he's going to school this CNBC panel when they confront him about all the experts that are supposed to be aligning with Kamala Harris, saying that her plan is amazing and Trump's is not, right? He's going to school them on why this is nonsense, okay, why you should not believe these people, okay, these economists who are really just propagandists. And I want to talk about it. But before we get into it, we have to have a word from the sponsor of this video, Noble Gold. Are you worried about the future of the U.S. economy? With so much uncertainty in the air, it is natural to fret about the security of your retirement savings. However, there's one asset that stands the test of time, and that is gold. For centuries, gold has been a hedge against market volatility and economic instability. With a gold IRA from Noble Gold Investments, you can harness the power of precious metals in order to secure your financial future. By rolling over your existing IRA or 401k into a self-directed gold IRA, you can enjoy the potential for long-term growth and stability. Diversify your portfolio with a tangible asset that has real value. Setting up a gold IRA with Noble Gold Investments has never been easier with its streamlined process and expert guidance. This election year, do not let the volatility and uncertainty keep you up at night. Vote for the timeless safety of gold and silver in 2024. And Noble Gold Investments will give you up to 10 1-ounce silver Trump coins or a 10-ounce silver American flag bar if you open a qualified account. Go to noblegoldinvestments.com now. That is noblegoldinvestments.com. And just remember, there's a risk with every investment and there's no guarantee of any kind.
Are you in a position to tell us who's going to fill out all the different cabinet positions?
See, I'm in a position to tell you I'm building a mosaic of the greatest people. And you know who selects the people who are going to serve? The President of the United States was just elected by everybody.
You can't even tell us a wish list at this point. Then let's talk, and we're eventually going to have to talk about tariffs, but all the different moving parts of the opposing economic plans from Vice President Harris versus President Trump. How do you characterize the big picture, the differences?
I think it's just partisan politics. It's amazing. It's like, you remember the 51 intelligence officers who said the Biden laptop was a Russian disinformation, and it was just under Biden's laptop, which the FBI must have known in about, what do you think, 10 seconds they knew was real? So that's like saying 15 Nobel laureates, including Janet Yellen's husband, writes and signs a piece of paper saying this economics is better than the other. It's just partisan nonsense. I hear you. It's nonsense.
I saw it in the debate.
Exactly. It's partisan nonsense, right? Designed to try to affect the outcome of the election because they know that Kamala Harris, in some cases, she'll just flat out lie like she did when it came to the Goldman report that was written by some independent analyst, right? So that's just one guy's opinion, right? She'll say, oh, well, all of these economists, the top economists in the world say that my plan is better than yours, okay? But all of these economists are liberal economists, right? You have people like, I don't know, Robert Reich. You guys know that left-wing communist, okay, who calls himself an economist. Yeah, guys like that will come out and endorse Kamala Harris's plan and trash Trump's plan, and she'll tout that as some type of objective opinion when it's not. And see, it's stuff like this, you know, when she says stuff like that, when the mainstream liberal media says, all the experts believe X, Y, and Z, they did that with Russiagate. They did it with Hunter Biden's laptop, as this guy just brought up. They did that with the pandemics. All the experts believe that if you wear a mask and 6 feet distancing and taking a vaccine and all of these things that they said, okay, even down to the origin of the virus itself, these so-called experts, they were wrong, okay? They were incorrect. These so-called conspiracy theorists tended to be right, okay? They tended to be right more times than they were wrong. So it's just funny how it works, okay? When I hear, well, all the experts believe X, Y, and Z, what that really tells me is that, well, all the liberals in this field, whether that be finance, economics, medicine, whatever we're talking about, right? All the liberals in that field believe that, right? That's my takeaway. That's how I translate it, okay? But what we do know in regards to the economy, Kamala Harris can promise whatever she wants. The liberal economists can say whatever they want. Okay, these are the same people that were talking about how Joe Biden's economy was going to be so great because they were going to be spending more money. Okay, it was going to be awesome. It was going to be amazing. This is what they said back in 2021. And look how that turned out in 2022, right? The effect of that. But regardless, we have a proven track record from Trump that he knows what he's doing, right? His economic policies work, and the Biden-Harris economic policies, not so much, right? We have this on record, okay? So it doesn't matter what she says, doesn't matter what the liberal economists say. The American people know the difference between the Biden-Harris economy and the Trump economy.
And I even saw David Solomon last week say that that was totally.
Oh, you should read. You know what? No one's read the Goldman report.
No,
if you read the Goldman report, it is nonsense. It just says, let's assume that it's the worst set of circumstances. We put in tariffs right? And every other country in the world matches the tariffs. Then let's go see what happens. I mean, this is just kind of nonsense.
Of a point. But it also had to do with open borders. But
it's nonsense, right? Oh, our prices for labor are going to come down because we're going to employ 30,000 new immigrants a month.
Policy differences, though, would you say?
AKA the Goldman individual, the analyst, was basically giving Kamala Harris points for some extreme things that she wants to do. Like, for example, letting in all the illegals, right? So the more illegals that come into the country, that's going to bring down wages, okay, the cost of labor, because again, we're going to have our new labor class come in, right? So again, those are the things that the Goldman analyst was calculating into Kamala's projections, while at the same time using the worst case scenarios under Trump, claiming that, well, if Trump implements his tariffs, mainly he's targeting China, right? Then basically there's going to be a global trade war, okay? And you're going to have all these countries around the world increase tariffs. And this is the type of stuff that was being calculated in the report. So you got to take it with a grain of salt, right? The fact that Kamala Harris is using this one report from this one random analyst, and even with the clear bias of the analyst here, there wasn't much of a difference in regards to the projections. It shows you how desperate she is to get people to actually sign up for her radical agenda, right? Especially the business community, right? Because they know that what she wants to do in regards to raising corporate tax rates, taxing unrealized capital gains, things of that nature, that's not good for growth. It's not good for the economy. It's not good for the American people. Everybody knows it.
That was my question. What is Kamala Harris proposing, Vice President Harris, and what is former President Trump proposing? For example, to fight inflation, to engender growth, to pay off the debt, to try and narrow the deficit. What are the differences?
Okay, there's only one way to break inflation, okay, and that is to bring down energy costs. The only tool that you really have to break inflation is to bring down. You have to stop printing money. God knows you have to stop printing money, because we all know where inflation comes from, right? Inflation comes from the American Rescue Plan, which was passed in 2021, which created $2 trillion of new cash being produced, right? That came into the economy. Everyone said it's going to create inflation. It created inflation in the middle of 2022. Okay, so we all know where inflation came from. It's called the American Rescue Plan. $2 trillion of spending. Look, you can't produce inflation without printing money. If you don't print money, you can't produce inflation.
I have a question.
Facts. I mean, it's really that simple. It's really that simple. Okay? The American Rescue Plan was completely and 100% unnecessary. Okay, we already had COVID stimulus money from the Trump administration. We were making a fast recovery. All we had to do was to lead the world in rolling back the lockdowns, opening up the country, getting back to work, okay? And we would have been fine, right? We would have been fine. Maybe we would have had some inflation, okay? Maybe a little bit, but it would not be what we're experiencing right now. The Democrats decided to pour more gasoline on what was supposed to be a red-hot Trump economy in 2021. Had he won, they decided to get into office and to pour gasoline on that, and voila, we have this massive historic inflation. It's really that simple.
Question for you.
Sure.
I don't disagree that bill produced some inflation.
I said it then, by the way.
Okay, but the question is whether, I mean, on a relative basis, how much do you blame the Fed? You can go look around the world about supply chain issues. I mean, there was other reasons that there was inflation in the system.
Okay, let's be.
You could say it exacerbated it.
No, you can't produce inflation without printing money. I'm telling you, if we had $1 trillion fixed
during the pandemic, supply chain
things can't inflate without money. Milton Friedman, you remember him?
Yes.
Right? Crystal clear. The only entity that can produce inflation in the world is the government by printing money.
Yes.
And there is no other. So let's do that, number one. Number two, let's go to energy. If you bring down energy costs...
But the government was printing money during the Trump administration.
Of course it did.
During the pandemic, it was printing money.
And there was no inflation. They were not printing too much. They did not print too much.
Yeah, I mean, again, at the time, for what we know, they weren't printing too much, at least at that time. But it's likely that there would have been some inflation. The problem is that Democrats came in and said, let's spend $2 trillion more, okay? Which I think is what really made it worse. And here's the thing. People try to say, oh, well, the inflation was global. There are supply chain issues globally. Well, you got to understand, who is the largest economy in the world? The United States of America. Okay, who printed the most money during the pandemic? The United States of America. When you stimulate the U.S. economy, you stimulate the world's economy, okay? Because we consume more than anybody else, right? So now if you have more Americans consuming, which we consumed a lot of stuff during the pandemic, okay, off the government dime, okay, we consumed a lot, which means that all around the world, you have places that produce raw materials, goods, provide services for the United States for us to consume. Guess what? Now they have to produce these things, okay, in order to meet our demand. And in that effort to do that, they have to raise prices because there is a worker shortage. So when you stimulate the United States economy, you're basically stimulating the world economy, okay? Don't let these liberals and their ignorant arguments fool you into relieving Joe Biden and Kamala Harris of responsibility, okay? And Democrats, right? They take the brunt of the responsibility for inflation, right? Especially when they come out here and they try to tell black people that are voting for Trump because of stimulus checks. Well, Trump didn't really give you the stimulus check. That's Democrats. Democrats really gave you the stimulus check. Okay, cool. So all the spending that happened during the pandemic was because of Democrats, okay? I'm glad that you guys are putting that squarely on the shoulders of Democrats because that is what resulted in the inflation. That and also the Federal Reserve, they were too slow raising interest rates, okay? The quantitative easing that happened during the pandemic increased the money supply rapidly. That also is a part of the reason why we have the inflation as well, too. So it was a combination of reckless monetary and fiscal policy.
Of course they are.
You don't think there's a lagging effect? Why do you think there was inflation in the rest of the world?
Well, why did I go on television and say that inflation was going to begin after the American Rescue Plan did $2 trillion, which was unnecessary? It was after we were coming out, right? 2021, as you remember, we were rocking, right? The second half of 2020.
There's no doubt that it was supply chain caused the supply problem, and then you dump all the, people would say that the stimulus during Trump you needed because of the pandemic, but then it was overdone and you didn't need it.
It was
but the question.
Boom. Ding, ding, ding. You got it, Joe Kernan. Okay. At the beginning of the pandemic, you could argue that it was needed. We didn't know what was happening. Okay. We took a very cautionary approach to it. But going into 2021, we knew, right? We had more information and Democrats decided to make a bad decision based off the new information that we had. Okay. And that's essentially what happened.
I have say it's the only reason.
Talking about drill, baby, drill, and we had J.D. Vance on last week, and a lot of people said, drill, baby, we're already, leading the world in production and export.
Yeah, but we could be doing a lot better. And this is another one of those tricky talking points that Democrats like to use, talking about energy, okay? Because you got to understand that under the Trump administration, we were leading the world. Okay, we were producing more oil than ever until the pandemic. As you can see, right before the pandemic, we were at about 13 million barrels per day. Okay, and we were projected to continue to skyrocket in production. Now, when the pandemic happens, obviously production tanks because of a supply shortage. Okay, the pandemic happened, and as we're starting to recover, okay, we are projected to make a full recovery, right? And to continue to go in the direction that we were going in, okay, under the Trump administration because of his pro-drilling policies. Now, Biden gets into office and he implements basically anti-drilling policies, anti-fossil fuel policies, pro-green initiatives. And yes, while oil production is continuing to grow, it's not growing at the rate that it should be growing had Trump stayed in office, okay? And you can see this quite a bit across the board when it comes to other energy data points, like, for example, U.S. natural gas export. Because as you can see here, okay, as soon as Biden gets into office, growth declines, right? The rate of growth starts to decrease, which means that we are not producing or exporting as much as we could be exporting under Trump's pro-energy policies, right? So that's the difference, okay? So that's how you got to interpret what the Democrats and the media will say, because they'll try to twist things to benefit Kamala, but they don't understand that we're not producing as much as we could be producing, okay? And that is most of the criticism from Republicans.
If you were to drill a lot more, prices would probably come down, which would be good. But the oil companies at that point, we know how supply and demand works. They pull in their horns when prices don't warrant a lot of excess, a lot more drilling, right?
We have the same or more. We have more oil and more capacity than Saudi Arabia. You would never know it because what we do is we constrain our drilling.
Even though it's up at record levels.
Yeah, we just won't drill on it because we don't want to. We want to break the Democratic Party does not want you in a fossil fuel car. They want to break the fossil fuel car. They want to break mobility. Okay? And you break mobility, you break rural America, right? We can't have electric cars operating in rural America. They can't, it doesn't work. So that breaks the rural. And then you go to suburban. How do I commute to work to and from in an electric car? So we need fossil fuels for the next 30 and 40 years. Someday we'll get good enough in batteries. My view is we should unleash American ingenuity
even more so.
To build batteries in America.
That's the counterfactual.
Before we go to electric cars, which are all produced in China, and the batteries are all produced in China, let's create batteries in America. Let's use American ingenuity to create batteries in America. Let's not close the Iron Range in Minnesota because they said it could pollute, right? Where we need the rare earths there to build our batteries. So we need to drill and we need to drive down energy costs. That will break the back of inflation. We need to break the back of inflation. Then we need to figure out how to build batteries for the long term, not the short term. We can't be all in electric cars by 2030. Trucks will be too heavy. You can't even go over bridges in America. So I need some practicality, and I need some business practicality.
Yeah, practicality. Practicality, which may be the best description of how I approach problems in life, okay? From a practical perspective, okay? There's nothing practical about the Democrats and their Looney Tunes far left green policies where they basically want to make the United States dependent on China, okay? Because they want to ban fossil fuels here, okay? They want to ban gas-powered cars and things like that, make us all drive Teslas and electric vehicles that aren't even that great, while also handing the manufacturing of the key components for the electric vehicles that the U.S. would be dependent on under Democrats and their vision for their green economy. They want to hand all that to China, right? Giving China more of an ability to cripple us into the future. It just doesn't make sense, okay? It doesn't make sense. We need to produce more energy here in the United States, drill, baby, drill, and that will definitely help bring down inflation, the cost of goods and services, because basically everything is dependent on energy, whether that be from electricity, transportation, production, whatever. All of it is dependent on energy. And if you bring down the cost of energy, which is a key component to basically everything, then you're going to bring down the cost of goods and services. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.